I have already seen tweets requesting that we talk about the tweets.
I'm sorry, what? Tweets talking about the tweets?
Yeah, I
so
saw some
confused.
tweets today that were like, what is Molly going to have to say about the president's tweets about liberating various states having Democratic governors? I will say this. There is this question of whether Twitter and Facebook should take down these tweets, whether they constitute an incitement to behavior that puts you at risk from coronavirus. That has been the kind of metric that these social media sites are using to take down, in some cases, messages from Brazil's president and Rudy Giuliani and other high-profile names. Today, so far, Twitter and Facebook have both basically said that the tweets do not constitute a clear and obvious incitement to dangerous behavior. Yep. Should we go back and say what they said or what they are? So for background
no,
here.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, for background.
And look, this applies broadly to the president's tweets, right? I mean,
It does, yes. And it is always, it has always been a question. It is more of a question now. What is happening is that there are protests. There are in-person protests in a couple of states, Virginia, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And it is primarily, like a lot of people in MAGA hats, it should be said, protesting and saying we want these governments to reopen. We want to get back to work, and we think that this lockdown is un-American and it's infringing on our liberties.
I'm sure you've seen that picture that's been on the wire services and social media. Those people jammed up against the door in like Ohio or Michigan.
In Ohio,
demanding that the economy be rewrote. Was it Ohio? Yeah. I mean, it's a stunning picture, right? It'll win some prizes.
Yep.
But it's enraged faces of people demanding the economy be reopened. It was extraordinary.
Right. So, a couple of those protests have involved people with really big guns. One of the tweets involved not only liberate Virginia, but save your great Second Amendment. What I'm going to say is it's very interesting because there was a FEMA basically simulation of what would happen. And this FEMA simulation was created, I think, in the fall, actually, not very long before a lot of this started. And it talked about how there would be shortages of PPE and how there would be, shortages of ventilators and all. It predicted almost all of the things that have been a part of this crisis so far. In the article I read about the FEMA simulation, it said one of the things that hasn't happened yet that was in the simulation was civil disruption, and civil protest. It is not a surprise that is part of what's happening now, because there is fear, there's disagreement, there's anger. I think as to the question of what the president is trying to do by adding to that fear, that anger, and potentially that violence, that's not a question that Twitter should even be asked to answer. That is a question for America. It just is. It just is.